Welcome. Here's a mobility routine for your wrists and ankles that help to increase flexibility and reduce risk of injury. This makes an excellent addition to a morning mobility routine, but it's also something I would never leave out of a warm-up before going on a run or a hike or any kind of physical activity. Let's get started. Cross one leg over the other and hold that ankle with the same side hand. Make sure your ankle joint is positioned in a way that it is allowed to move freely. You can hold the toes of that foot with the opposite hand and use that hand to rotate your ankle. If you're uncomfortable in a cross-leg position, you can leave your other leg extended out like this. And if you're uncomfortable sitting on the floor, you can alternatively do this on a chair or a stool like this. Move slowly through your full range of motion. However fast you may be going, you can benefit from slowing it down by at least 50%. Try and focus on what segments of the range of motion are a little bit more difficult to control. Try and let your foot be completely passive and let all of the movement come from your hand rotating the foot. You can hold each toe in a similar way and rotate a few times in both directions. Next, let's move out of a few ankle stretching positions. You can support your ankle by holding it with one hand while cupping the toes with the other hand and pulling back to stretch the top of your foot. From here, try pushing back to a neutral position against your hand with your foot. Let your foot win, but give it some resistance on the way back. Next, you can cup your heel and hold the bottom of your toes and the balls of your feet with the other hand. You can push your heel like you're trying to take off a boot and pull back on your toes in order to stretch the bottom of your foot and your Achilles tendon. From here, push back with your toes like you're trying to move back into the neutral position. Next, you can hold the inner and outer portion of your foot with each hand and rotate it into a supination or pronation position. From here, again, you're going to rotate back against the resistance of your hand with your foot to a neutral position. Next, let's do all the same things on the other side. Rotating your ankles slowly a few times in each direction. Holding each toe and rotating slowly a few times in each direction. Stretching the top of the foot and pushing back to a neutral position against resistance. Stretching the sole of the foot and pushing back against resistance to a pointed position. Supination, pushing back into a neutral position. And pronation, pushing back into a supination. Next, let's mobilize our wrists. You can sit or stand for this. Look at your palm and hold your fingers with the opposite hand. You can extend your arm and press your palm out in front of you. You should feel a stretch in your forearms or wrists, but if you feel any discomfort, you're probably taking it a little too far. Ease up a bit. On your way out of this stretch, make sure that you're pressing your fingers back against the resistance of the supporting hand. You can do the same thing on the opposite side. Taking a few breaths in the stretch. And then pressing against the resistance of your hand back to a neutral position. You can then repeat the same stretch holding the thumb instead of the fingers. Make sure to take a few deep breaths and relax into the stretch. When you're ready to come out of it, press against resistance. Again, don't just let go of the thumb when you're finished. Press your thumb against the resistance of your fingers back to a neutral position. For the next stretch, put your forearm out in front of you with the palm facing down. Cover the back of your hand with the opposite hand and wrap your fingers around the edge of your palm. Make sure you're not supporting the wrist with your fingers. Let your elbows drop and let your wrists rise up, and keep your arms close to your body. You should feel the stretch in the back of your hand and maybe in the top of your forearms a little bit. Take a few deep breaths, and when you're ready to come out of the stretch, again, you want to push against the resistance of your hand so that you're actively moving back to a neutral position. You can try this again on the other side. Taking a few deep breaths in the stretch. And then pressing against resistance back to a neutral position. Again, we're going to get into the same stretch, except we're holding the thumb with the hand and pulling it in close to the wrist. You're not trying to force your thumb to touch your wrist. You're just trying to get a comfortable stretch in your thumb. Again, you want to press against the resistance of your hand to bring your thumb back to a neutral position. Repeat on both sides. Let's get into supination of the wrists. Look at your palm and place the opposite hand on the back of that hand. Wrap your fingers around the meat of your thumb and pull with your fingers while you press with your palm against the back of the hand. This should rotate your hand into a stretch as you pull that hand close to your body and down towards your waist. Make sure your elbows aren't flaring out, and you should feel a nice stretch. If it feels too intense, you're probably going a little bit too deeply. Take a few breaths, and when you're ready to come out of the stretch, press against the resistance of the stretch in order to bring your hand back to a neutral position. You can try the same thing on the other side, holding the stretch, keeping the hands close to the body, making sure the elbows aren't flaring out, and pulling the stretched hand down towards the waist until you feel a nice, full stretch. Take a few deep breaths, and when you're ready, press against resistance back into a neutral position. For pronation of the wrist, you can extend your arm out in front of you with the pinky side up. Cover the back of that hand with the other hand and wrap that thumb around the meat of the ulnar side of the palm, or pinky side of the palm. From there, you can let the elbow and wrist bend and keep the elbows down and not flared out as you pull your wrist towards your chest. Take a few deep breaths, and when you're ready to come out of the stretch, press against resistance in order to return to the neutral position. You can repeat this on the other side. That's it for today. I hope you found the video helpful. Thank you for tuning in. If you think this might benefit somebody you know, please share. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.